Hello, my friends. So today, I want to talk to you a bit about identity. And I want to discuss how identity is formed by the average normie person in today's society. And also how I think identities were formed in the past in traditional and, in my opinion, more natural societies and conditions. So, to begin with the discussion on the present state of identity creation or formation in society, there are two things I want to bring up. The first is that I recently saw a video on a channel called Meme Analysis, where he is discussing the Sigma male meme. And this is a meme that I only recently came across, the Sigma male meme. And essentially this meme is it breaks down men into different profiles, different stereotyped profiles. The alpha, the beta, and the sigma. And the profile of the sigma is basically, it's got all of the confidence and charisma and skill and attractiveness to women of the alpha, but they're social outcasts like the beta. They don't need friends. They go their own way. So it's kind of this weird conglomeration of it's a collection of different characteristics from the preconceived stereotypes of the alpha and the beta. And in the Meme Analysis video, he talks about how, and I think very wisely, he talks about how this profile, the Sigma male, is something that I think typically young, impressionable young men and boys look at, and they find themselves relating to this prepackaged personality profile, this character profile that is given to them. And they say, I relate to this, and I'm going to label myself as this. This becomes part of my identity. It forms my identity. And once they have accepted this Sigma male identity label, it then becomes something that essentially possesses them and influences them in a certain direction. So prior to labeling themselves with Sigma male, they have a certain personality type or character, and they then relate to the Sigma male label. And after they've accepted this label upon themselves, they are then influenced or manipulated into a new direction to conform more fully, to conform more completely and more perfectly to this prepackaged Sigma male profile. So I thought that this take was quite interesting because it dovetails perfectly with something else that I've been learning about lately, which is the work of a German professor named Hans-Georg Müller, who teaches at the University of Macau, and he has a YouTube channel called Carefree Wandering. And on this channel, he has a series of videos where he discusses his theoretical framework of identity formation. And he proposes that there are 3 different modes, or technologies, as he calls it, of identity formation. The first he calls sincerity, and he says that this mode of identity formation was most prevalent in traditional societies, and under the model of sincerity, people obtain an identity by sincerely committing to a social role. And that social role generally would be their role in the family as a father or a mother or a son or daughter or brother or sister. It could be a role in society, such as the role of a monk, the role of a king, of an aristocrat, the role of a soldier or a warrior, even something like the role of a farmer or a fisherman. It could be your profession. But essentially, people obtain their identity by sincerely committing to a role that they have in society. And based on that commitment, that sincere commitment to the role, they obtain sort of a set of values, beliefs, practices, etc., that they sincerely commit to and that other people can then expect from them. So this is how identity, according to Muller, was formed in traditional societies. Then he says the second mode is authenticity. And authenticity is something that, according to him, emerged in the modern age. And by modern age, I mean, 1800s, 1900s, early 20th century. And he calls it authenticity. And according to the mode of authenticity, identity is based in this hypothetical true self that is hidden behind those social roles that the model of sincerity takes one as committed to. So behind the role of the father or the son or wife or husband or soldier, king, whatever, behind your social role is a true, authentic self. And under this mode, the social roles become mere conformity. It kind of turns the previous role on its head, and it says that the social roles that sincerity took to be fundamental to identity are actually just mere conformity, that your authentic self is at odds with these social roles, and true identity is obtained by discovering this authentic self and expressing it. And I think even now, this type of mentality is still quite prevalent. But according to Muller, the 21st century has seen the rise of a new prevalent mode of identity formation, and this relates to the Sigma male idea that I brought up earlier. And according to Muller, this new mode of identity formation is called profilicity. It's based on what he calls profiles. And under profilicity, you obtain your identity through the creation of a profile of yourself. And that profile can be, it's based in things like your Facebook profile, your Tinder profile, your social media presence in general. And even things like the labels that you give yourself. He doesn't mention this specifically, but I would say that this whole profilicity mode goes back even farther than the 21st century into the 21st century in things like celebrity worship. People who get very obsessed with a certain celebrity and then begin to identify with that celebrity, where they want to dress like that celebrity, they want to act like that celebrity, even things like dressing like or acting like a certain character of a particular celebrity in a certain movie, and creating this profile of that character and trying to live it out or live up to it. That to me is a type of profilicity. It also relates, in my opinion, to things like, I remember in middle school, when I was in middle school, so between the ages of like 12 and 14, the movie Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan was very popular with the girls in my school. And in that movie, the movie uses certain characters, to create stereotypes, profiles of different types of girls in high school. And I remember girls in my class would attach themselves and relate to specific types of girls presented in the movie, and once they feel that they relate to a certain type, once they've made that connection, they proceed to attempt to embody that type in a more and more perfect way. This even goes to things like, the whole genre of teen films, and the whole idea of, and this is something that I remember too when I was going into high school. I, at some point in my life, put some amount of faith in this idea that there were different types of people in high school. There were the jocks, there were the nerds, there were the emo kids, there were the preppy kids, there were, theater kids. Okay, all these different types, these profiles that I believed existed. This is a type also of profilicity. Okay, and people obtain their identities under this mode by identifying a profile first, comparing themselves to the profile, and then once they feel that they identify with one profile or another, they then actively work to live up to that profile in the world. And then also, not only do they observe the profile in the media space, internalize it and identify with it, but then they also create their own profiles in the media space of themselves as that profile. And it kind of creates this self-referential loop where they try to become more and more perfect versions of that particular profile. So, I mean, other examples in the Sigma male video are like the indigo child that he brings up, or there are tons of other examples you could come up with where he brings up things like personality tests that are given on BuzzFeed. There are countless examples today of profiles, prepackaged personality profiles that are sold to the public, essentially, that are promoted to them so that people can look to them, compare it to themselves, identify with it, and then run with it and try to fit that mold more and more perfectly. So according to Moeller, this professor, profilicity is becoming the more and more prevalent way for people to create an identity in society. And according to Mueller, he thinks that this is actually not a bad thing. This is a good thing, because profilicity doesn't come with what he calls pathological over-identifications that other previous modes of identity creation came with. According to him, according to Mueller, it was really a horrible, a bad thing. It was pathological for people to have, for example, certain expectations of their sons and daughters, or of their fathers and mothers in traditional societies, that were based on their gender, that were based on the fact that they're a father or a mother, or a son or a daughter. So according to Mueller, this is pathological, and people over-identify. They end up over-identifying with the fact that they're a son or a daughter, or a mother or father, and this creates unfair expectations on them based on this gender role and familial role that they have identified with. So, and Mueller sees this as being, the profilicity as being a very democratic way of establishing identity. It allows people to be creative. It allows people to be not original, but flexible in their identities. And I think that's a load of crap. And Meme Analysis, I'll bring up his reaction to Meme Analysis in his channel, also sees this as the whole profilicity phenomenon as being disturbing. I think he sees it as being fake and not desirable. But where I think his analysis falls short, or where his critique falls short, is that he thinks that the whole thing is just sort of a ploy of capitalism. He's one of these guys where he wants to blame it on capitalism. It's just people out there trying to make money and prepackaging personalities into something that can be sold and profited on. And this is also, generally speaking, a critique that people come up with when talking about the 1,000 different gender identities and sexual identities that are promoted today. This is all that all falls into the mode of profilicity as well. And the critics of this will all often say things like, under capitalism, even gender and sexuality are products that are sold to people, and it's all about profit, it's all about making money, and capitalism is just so horrible that we've reached the point where identity itself is a product that is bought and sold. And there's a whole bunch of talk that people have about that in particular. Like Mueller himself brings up things like how this mode of profilicity and this like second order observation that comes with profilicity, where you observe things not directly, but you observe how they are being observed, and you anticipate how other people think about it, how it applies to just about everything today. Things, for example, like brands like Nike or Starbucks. When you go to these different corporate brands, you are basically buying something not for the product itself, but by how it's observed by others. You go to a Starbucks because it's seen as being one of these places that other people want to be at, or one of these places that is good for the environment. Or you buy Nike and you wear it to the Black Lives Matter protest not because you like how the Nike shirt feels or how it fits or how it looks, but because Nike stands for Black Lives Matter or something like that, and you know that the brand is observed in that way, and the brands are not in the business anymore of creating products for the sake of the functionality of the product itself, but for the psychological profile that the brand has in the public, the way that it's seen, the things that it stands for. But I don't think that is the root of this disillusion of traditional identity. So I think that, and you can look this up, if you look up, for example, teen films, this genre of film, of movies that promotes these stereotypes to teenagers. One of the earliest pioneers of this type of movie was a you-know-who-ish man out of an advertising agency from Madison Avenue. And, the whole industry of media out of Hollywood, out of the news, out of, the BuzzFeed personality profile tests, this whole media industry in general is controlled by a certain small group of you-know-who-ish types. And I don't think that the main goal of creating these sort of subversive personality profiles I don't think that it's to make money. Because the political system that we're being brought into, and I've talked about this, I think, even in my previous video, the political system that we're being brought into is a global, urbanized, industrialized system. And traditional identities don't fit in to that system, because a traditional identity is something that is tied to the family clan. It's tied to religion. It's tied to the land. It's tied to your place in this social hierarchy. And those traditional personalities, along with the traditional lifestyles, well, first the lifestyle had to be destroyed. The people had to be brought in from these traditional lifestyles in rural societies, agrarian societies, pastoral societies. They had to be urbanized, taken away, uprooted from that. And once they were uprooted from that, basically they had to be provided with an alternative. You couldn't have the traditional mode of identification anymore. You had to be provided with some new means of establishing your identity in society. And those new means are these personality profiles. And so that, I think, is the main purpose of all this. What the traditional identity comes with is, I think, not just what Mueller says. It's not just your social role. This is something that I think he either purposefully or unwilling, or like not purposefully, I don't know. It could be something that he consciously does or something that he unconsciously does. But I think he misses the fact that it's not just your social role in a traditional society that establishes your identity. It's also your race. It's your ethnicity, the smaller subgroup of the race. It's your geography, even. Do you come from an area that's near a river? Do you come from the mountains? Do you come from a forest? These sorts of things would heavily influence your identity, the religion that you practiced, the lifestyle that you had, the daily practices that you have, the things that you do to survive. All of that goes into influencing your identity in a traditional society. So it's not just your profession or your status in the family, it's also your broader, essentially your taxonomic identification, where you fit in with the taxonomy, biologically speaking. I mean, even things like whether you're fit, whether you're attractive, whether you're tall or short, whether you're athletic or bookish, these sorts of things go into making an identity as well. So it's physiognomy, it's physiology, it's taxonomy, it's and by taxonomy I literally mean that. I feel like if we stuck with the mentality that existed even as recently as the early 20th century, we would see different ethnic groups as different subspecies. A subspecies would be the race. So breaking it down, European, Asian or Mongoloid, African, and the other different subgroupings of humans. And then you would have subgroupings of those. This is a literal biological taxonomy of the species that I think would come into the establishment of identity if we continue down that road, which I think is a lot more rational than today. So essentially that traditional identity was destroyed, and we're now left with an urbanized, industrialized, uprooted, individualistic society of people, globalized society. And the powers that be, I think, realized that they had to provide some kind of alternative, some kind of way for people to safely establish identities that wouldn't come with their own hierarchies, their own values, their own centers of power, like I discussed in the previous video about urbanization. So I think I'm going on a little too long about this. I think you get the point. That, I think, is the real origin of these profile personalities that have been thrust onto the public so ubiquitously. And it's the real tragedy of people attaching themselves to these profile personalities, because a genuine, natural, traditional identity is something that is objective. It's not just a matter of opinion. This is something I should have said earlier in the video, but essentially these profile personalities make identity into a matter of opinion. You can be whatever you want depending on the profile that you project and the profiles that you internalize and accept. And a traditional natural identity is objective. It's not a matter of opinion. It's based on your position in the biological taxonomy and your position in society, which is based on objective facts, such as, are you a father? Are you a mother, a son, a daughter, a warrior, a priest, an aristocrat, a blacksmith, a farmer, different professions, different social roles, gender roles. These sorts of things are objective facts that cannot be changed. And that, I think, is a way more natural way of establishing identity. So, anyway, hope you found this interesting. I think it turned into a way longer video than I originally intended, but it's an interesting discussion. I think that a lot of people do suffer from this obsession with personality profiles today, and it fills a void that was left after the traditional traditional identity was destroyed. It fills that void with something that is very kosher, very safe to the powers that be, and they would hate nothing more than for things like family clans and religions and traditional ways of life to rise again, because those come with potential for hierarchy and power outside of their control. So, hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.